What is going on, everybody? I hope you're having a great day today. This is Alex from the Fresh Fantasy Podcast, and this is the debut episode of Season 3. And today, to start off Season 3 with a bang, we have a very special interview. He is a former high school All-American QB who played 15 seasons in the NFL as a two-time Pro Bowler and is one of two players in NFL history to complete a touchdown pass to himself. He is also one of 14 human beings to be a Super Bowl champion starting QB since the year 2000. Backed by popular demand, he is Big Bad Brad Johnson. How are you doing, Brad?
I'm doing great, Alex. Appreciate you reaching out. Appreciate the intro there, too. So we'll have a lot of fun here, man. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I love the background right there with the Super Bowl 37 right there. That is so cool. But before we get into all the Super Bowl stuff, which I'm super excited to cover, let's go back to the beginning of your career. You were a two-sport athlete playing football and basketball, and you received All-American honors as a QB in football, and you were All-State in basketball. But in Florida State, where you went to college, you started off as a third-string QB, worked your way up to a starter in your junior year, started 6 games in your junior year, one game in your senior year. So if I have that correct, you started just 7 games in college and went into the NFL. So what was your mindset at that point taking such a big leap from college to the NFL?
Yeah, I was a late bloomer, to be honest with you, Alex. I played. I was a basketball player coming out of North Carolina. I didn't even know if I wanted to play football. I actually quit football my senior year. Missed the first 3 days of practice because I was just focused on basketball. So my high school football coach, Kenny Ford, he taught me back into playing football and said we'd have a great time and it might be my best future. So at Florida State, I was a little bit late against some great players with Casey Weldon, who's actually run up to the Heisman. We had #1 team in the country and kind of going back and forth with each other. And so I didn't play that much, you know what I mean? But I was a late bloomer, and I played 2 years of basketball in college and keep going back to that. But I knew I had more potential in football, being a 6'5" quarterback than a 6'5" basketball shooter, And
Yeah.
The guy that they touted me at that time was a guy named Vinny Testaverde, who had won the Heisman at University of Miami and those kind of things. And that's what I thought my potential could be. And I actually wore the number 14 because of Vinny Testaverde. He was my hero at that time. But you know what? My mindset was just like, how good of a quarterback can I be? And even though I didn't get to play that much in college, I just thought I got great potential. And I just had to hone in on my skills and don't give up and don't worry about what everyone else just thinks my journey should be. Let my journey be itself and just go fight to the very end and see where it could take me.
So awesome. And so after that in college, you were drafted in the 92 NFL draft, 227th pick as a late round guy. But I thought it was really cool that you played your first year behind Warren Moon and Rich Gannon. I mean, 2 really, really great players. Do you think with honing in on your skills and everything like that and learning from those guys, like how essential was that to what your career would later become?
It's really incredible. I mean, when you think about a lot of the quarterbacks now, they're thrown into the fire so fast, like trying to play them day one. Are you ready? Like, no, you're not. And again, I didn't play that much in college, but my first year in Minnesota was behind Rich Gannon and Wade Wilson, who actually became my QB coach in Dallas at the end of my career. Then Sean Salisbury. Then the next year was Jim McMahon. Then I had Warren Moon, and I played with all kinds of legends. But having those older guys that I could watch how they took notes, how they worked practice, how they dealt with success, how they dealt with failure, how they dealt with a touchdown pass, how they dealt with an interception. Like, how do you lead your team day in and day out? How do you go through the walkthroughs, and how do you install game plans, and how do you get across what you want to get across as far as the plays go, and how do you communicate with the receivers and all the above? So I got to learn from a bird's eye view, being shoulder to shoulder with these other great quarterbacks, and obviously competed with them, but got to play with them, had a great bond with all those guys.
Were guys like Warren Moon and Rich Gannon separately or together, were those guys that were helpful to the younger quarterbacks at least? Because, I mean, not like they had a huge threat. I mean, obviously everyone's coming for your job every day, but were those guys still willing to teach all that they knew, to guys like you that they were playing with?
Yeah, I don't think you just bring a guy, another quarterback, and you put him on your shoulder and you start teaching them things. I think what it is, you just learn by being around each other. And you just, from me, watching them, how they ran the how they handle themselves in the locker room, the training room, and in the meetings, the installation meetings, and then just the work that they did. But you just kind of watch them vicariously, just kind of like, what would I do? What would I do that he did good? What would I do that he did? I thought he could do better, those kind of things, and just learn from it. But we had great respect for each other to this day. And all of us, had great careers. And you have detours along the way, whether it's injuries or trades or those kind of things. But Rich Gannon later on, he was the MVP of the league, and Warren Moon's a Hall of Famer, and Jim McMahon, he won a Super Bowl, and the list goes on with the guys that I played with throughout my career. But I'd say in the quarterback room, it's always great to have guys that work together, respectful, and it's competitive in a good way. You just learn from each other, and
Absolutely.
very respectful. Got to be respectful.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can, real quick before we move on, do you have like a favorite Warren Moon or Rich Gannon story just off the top of your head?
Yeah, no, Warren Moon. He had a play. We were playing the Saints, and it was just a bad day. We were down like 14-10 with like 30 seconds to go. The ball was on the 10-yard line. Warren had a good day. It wasn't a great day, but we get down there. Somehow we stay in the game, and we call a timeout. It's a crucial play, and he comes over to the sidelines, and I'm like, we're worried about, is it going to be all out pressure? Is it man? Is it zone? What are they going to run? And Warren Moon, first thing he asked for was he asked the equipment manager. He says, "Hey, you got some lip balm? It's a lip balm." And he's asked for a file for his finger. He always file his finger because he when he snap it, kind of hear the click of the football. Like when he asked for the lip balm for his lips, the file for his finger during a crucial 30 seconds left in the game, I'm like, good gosh, this guy's he's gonna do something special. And he actually threw a touchdown pass to Carter Ishmael in the back of the end zone, and Warren and I would still laugh at it to this day. But Warren, he's first class, all time Hall of Famer, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Was Warren Moon like someone was Rich Gannon the same way that in those big moments that they were kind of cool, calm, and collected, or does that energy really kind of feel off with everyone else on the team when guys like that are calm and they feel good about the moment?
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
I would think Rich is more of a grinder.
Okay.
Everything's really detailed. He's gritting his teeth, and he's going to make it happen, and he's going to be done in practice. And Warren's a little bit more relaxed, and just would communicate through practice, and this is how it's going to get done. But a lot of different ways to do it, and but both of them tremendous players.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it? Similar at Florida State, like you said, you were still honing in on your craft in the first few seasons that you played. You didn't get to start a ton of games. Was that hard to stay ready every week? Because we see NFL backups, we don't see them get into the games often enough. But I feel like there has to be a special art to every single week, no matter who you're playing behind. You always have to be ready. So what was that challenge like for you? And what were some of the best ways that you were able to navigate that challenge of always staying ready and never knowing when your time was going to come?
Yeah, it's a great question. My dad, he always made a point when I was a little kid. He said, it's better to be prepared, have an opportunity, than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So you better be ready when your moment comes. So a lot of times as a backup, or you may be the third string quarterback, and like, I'm not going to play today, and you don't really study your game plan. And then all of a sudden the first string guy gets hurt in the first quarter, then the second guy dings up his hand. Like all of a sudden you're in the game. And so be ready for those moments. And all you can do is, handle yourself, be prepared, and you never know when your time's coming, but be ready when your time is coming. So there was moments where, as a backup, like, did you do your work? And like when I was playing behind Warren Moon, like, when that guy gets hurt, your heart starts racing a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like the bullpen guy. A pitcher's great in the bullpen, but like eventually you got to walk out there to the mound yourself.
Yep.
You got to be able to throw strikes. And same way as a quarterback. And so, hopefully you've done the work in the meeting room and the film room, and you don't get as many reps. So I just say, get the work in a little extra on the side by yourself, and then be ready when that time comes.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing you mentioned was your dad. How was he or him, or who were your biggest influences, coming out of high school and college and all the things that you had to do to be able to get up to a starting level? Who were some of your biggest influences outside of like the Warren Moon and some of the coaches and players you played with?
Great question. I had many, many people involved in my life, but my dad, he coached all my youth football teams, and baseball and basketball teams. My mom, she was a school teacher, and they started up they started up the basketball league for me growing up, and she'd won a couple state championships in high school. So that was a challenge to be, can you win a state championship like her, those kind of things. But there was a guy, a basketball player in my high school. His name was Brad Daugherty. Ended up playing at University of North Carolina, was an all-star for the Cleveland Cavaliers for a long time. So he set the standard of what it's like to be an All-American at our high school. They only retire your jersey if you're going to be an All-American, So the standard was set high. And I think just, always thinking that, bigger moments are going to come. I might have had a basketball game where I scored, 25 points, but I went 10 for 15. That's 20 points. I had five foul shots, but man, I should have went 13 for 15. How can I be better? You know what I mean? My dad would challenge me. He's like, Brad, you're kind of missing some shots in the fourth quarter. Like, what are you going to do better? So he told me, he said, Brad, the time you get better is you got to practice when others are not, so it may be jumping rope or running after practice or getting up before school and shooting before school. And the other thing is challenge yourself. So I would do say take 10 free throws, for instance. And so if I hit 9 out of 10, I'd have to run a sprint for the one I'd miss. Well, then you're a little bit tired if you don't make that one. Then maybe make 8 out of 10 the next time. And then you're running 2 sprints. And you might be running sprints there for 45 minutes till you make 10 for 10. So I think just applying pressure on yourself, knowing that those bigger moments are going to come. Again.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that being said, did you find that, whether in high school or college, you were going in the NFL, that, a lot of those work in silence moments, as they call, when you're doing them by yourself, was that difficult sometimes to kind of constantly stay prepared? Or was it more for you that, this is my profession, and if I'm going to do it, this is what we have to do, kind of balls to the wall, that you're leaning into your preparation? Or was it hard sometimes to stay motivated and stay working when no one else was, to be able to get where you wanted to get to?
I was always motivated. I love working out. I love learning. I love being coached. I think those are important traits for guys that are going to be successful. I think watching, there's the thing of 10,000 hour rule. You know what I mean? So the more you play your guitar, probably the better you're going to become. And the more you play gigs and little bars and little restaurants, probably the better you're going to become. Because one day you're going to be in front of that microphone in front of a national TV. And so for me as a quarterback, it was watching film in the dark, is watching TV, watching other games on TV, and how do they handle a 2-minute situation? How do they handle a 4-minute situation? Should he have thrown the ball away? What are the learning lessons instead of just watching the game and eating popcorn with it? You know what I mean? So building up those 10,000 hours it's pivotal. There's only so many throws that you can make. But I think the greatness of people is when say they put in a particular play, so you get to see it. They install it. So that's once. And then you do it on the walkthrough. That's twice. Yep. And then you run the play 3. Then you see it on film 4. Then you go out to practice. That's 5. You watch it after practice. That's 6. That's 6 opportunities you got to practice that one play, even though you might have only ran it really one time in practice. And sometimes as a backup or whoever it may be, maybe you didn't get that one rep, but you got 6 other mental reps by watching those things that take place. So I think making everything count. In those moments that you're there to learn.
Do you think that's the biggest, reason that, guys that are later round players, like yourself, find a way to eventually make it in the NFL? Because, obviously those guys are, you don't start out, you don't get the first round draft capital, you don't get any extra advantage from the coaches giving you an opportunity. So do you think that reason or another reason is the biggest reason why those later round guys eventually make it? Or do you have any, key you would give to the next, 6th round pick 199 Tom Brady, that, has their back against the wall? What would be your biggest advice to those guys?
Usually when you get drafted first round, that probably means you are better than Tom Brady as a 6th round pick, or myself as a 9th round pick, or Kurt Warner, a free agent. You probably weren't ready, whether it's physical or or playing wise at that time. But I think when you grind and you grit and you love the game and you find ways to get better. And so when you do get those opportunities, you can't mess up. You got to come through in the clutch. But I think, I just think that when your moment comes, you have to be prepared for those times. And so sometimes you take a young guy that he may get thrown into the fire too fast, and they're out there playing, and people are, and the next thing you know, they have short careers. Yeah. But I think you take a guy like Kirk Cousins, who maybe he didn't play his first 2 or 3 years. He was behind RG3, but then he kind of learned the game. And when his time came around, the guy throws 30, 35 touchdowns every year and is making a lot of money doing what he's doing. But maybe he wasn't ready as a rookie, but then he's ready in his 3rd or 4th year. So I think you want to go to the right system, the right coach, and when your time comes, being ready for those moments, then you can have a longer career. But I tell people, it's harder to be the starter sometimes than it is to be more successful when you are the starter, because those opportunities, they don't come around. Like, you may get a chance as a, if you're the first round pick, you may get a chance to start earlier, but as a backup, you need someone to get hurt, or you got to be in a contract year to get those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think was that another thing that's tough for you in terms of opportunities, where you're playing with guys like Warren Moon? I mean, who in like '96, where you're like he's got hurt a couple times and you got to take over. Was that tough for you mentally sometimes, when like you get your chance to kind of show yourself, but you know that eventually like Warren's going to come back and he's probably going to take over for you? Is that, a tough mental challenge to deal with, where you could play the best game you could possibly play, but they're going to come back and start? Is that something that was difficult to deal with?
I didn't really have to deal with that. The way it worked out for when I came in, Warren was actually hurt, and then I kind of ran off with it, and then he finally got healthy again, and then he went on later to make Pro Bowls at age 43, 44, I think. But I think when you just have to know your role as a where you're at in the pecking order of the room. Who's the starter, who's the number two guy, and then sometimes it can get ugly between quarterbacks. I never had a bad situation with other quarterbacks. Obviously, you're always in competition, but not where it divided the team or divided the organization. So some of those things can happen, but it was all respect for all the other quarterbacks I was always with.
That's awesome. Let's fast forward to 98 and 99. In 98, the Vikings go 15-1. Randall Cunningham is officially named the starter. And you're traded to the Redskins at the time, where you had your career high in passing yards, completions, touchdowns, and passer rating, on your way to your first Pro Bowl appearance. What was that season like for you, finally breaking out per se and having the best season of your career to date?
Yeah, at the end of 97 and 98, I went through a bunch of injuries. I had a neck injury. Then 98, I started 2 games. And I broke my foot and broke my ankle. Broke my thumb. And so I wasn't able to play. And Randall Cunningham was the MVP of the league. And I was kind of there as a cheerleader, but it's pretty incredible to watch. But I'd been in Minnesota for 7 years. And so I got traded, went to Washington, and it was an awesome opportunity for me because I got to take over a team that hadn't been in the playoffs in a long time, 6 or 7 years. I got to be the starter, got to lead the team, took the team to a division title. And it was a fun. I told my wife actually this morning that probably 99 was probably my most fun year because I got to be myself, got to take an organization that hadn't been in the playoffs in a long time. The Redskins were my childhood dream is to play for growing up as a kid. And so it was just a fun time to play for North Turner and play for the Redskins at that time.
That's so cool. Did you think that, like we talked a little bit about earlier, of that how like you kind of wait for your opportunity and you have to be ready and all the prep that goes into everything? Did you feel like when you got traded, like this is kind of finally my time? And was it still intimidating knowing just the unknown of, yes, you do get to lead a franchise for the first time, but the unknown is that's a little bit of a new experience for you and you hadn't been able to do that before? Was that tough for you? Exciting? I'm sure it was a lot of mixed emotions, but that's probably also what made it really fun.
Yeah, it was. I'd always played well whenever I played in Minnesota and those opportunities came. But my biggest part was I had injuries. And so I was out and I missed a lot of games with, some different injuries. But in 99, that was, it was tough from the standpoint I had to learn a new system.
Yeah.
I'd been in one system for 7 years and you almost got a race. How do you call a play on a huddle? It might be, axe, double right, spirit layer, 735H pump, double cadence on 2, changing from U shift to green left, left step, short spiral 2, wide and Z over. How do you call the play, coach? You know what I mean? So it was, but it was awesome for me because I had to learn everyone's name in the organization, the players, and I got to prove myself to them as a new player. And so, and they were having fun too because they finally got to win and go to the playoffs. So it was just a fun time for all of us.
That's so awesome. You also mentioned that you got to play with Norv Turner that year. And I personally, think Norv Turner is one of the more underrated coaches. I don't think he gets talked about enough with his skill set. What was it like to play for him? And what is he like on a day-to-day basis, as a coach, as a man, probably as a friend a little bit too, and your relationship?
Love playing for Norv Turner. I had no clue anything about him when I first got traded to Washington. And I knew he'd coached Troy Aikman at Dallas. And I always loved watching Troy Aikman throw and some of the stuff he could do. And so it was really cool playing for Norv. He really sped up my drops, and he took more shots down the field. His system was about taking shots down the field, checking it down wasn't there. He'll keep calling shot after shot after shot. He loved the corner pump and the double post kind of moves, and it kind of fit my game, to be honest with you. And then it just had a natural way of just kind of like explaining things, like you just kind of just throw it out there. Instead of trying to be perfect every time of trying to hit the bullseye, just hit the bull.
Yeah.
Just hit the bull. Give your guys a chance and throw balls out of the receiver's break. And I thought he was a tremendous play caller, huge part of my success in my career. We only got to be together for about a year and a half, but love Norv, great guy, great friend, and great play caller, and all the above. And then obviously his son now is the coordinator there at Washington now. So he was just a young punk at that time, Scott, and he was always in the back of the bus. He's always arguing with Charlie Casserly about what they should have done in the draft and stuff as a 13-year-old kid. But you knew he was going to be a great football mind, and he really is a sharp guy. So I love watching all of Scott's plays and the way he calls it now.
That's so cool. So do you think, you mentioned that he was like really big for you in your career, whether earlier, like is there up to this point in your first year at Washington, was there a real turning point or a real light bulb moment for you where you felt like, okay, like I feel like I could actually play in this league for a long time? Maybe it was at the beginning. I mean, because you went to play for a pretty long career for people, at that time in the NFL. So was there ever a light bulb or a turning point for you where you really felt like you had the juice to kind of stay in and be a productive player?
I can't tell you just one particular moment. I thought I'd always played well, to be honest with you. It's more about staying injury-free and being able to last the whole season. And then you got to be productive in the playoffs. You got to win big. And it's hard. I mean, if you look at a lot of quarterbacks' records, they're, you take an Aaron Rodgers, for instance. Like, I don't even know his record, to be honest with you. It's probably let's say he's 9-9. You know what I mean? But he had won a Super Bowl, so that's 3 games. You subtract. So a lot of times in the playoffs, you're losing more games than you're winning. And it's really hard to explain. I mean, obviously Tom Brady and Peyton Manning have, been in the Super Bowls a bunch, and their records kind of high to low with wins and losses. But it's just, for me, it's being able to prove that you could do it. Finally, I did it in Tampa by winning the Super Bowl, and you kind of get that credit and being valid as far as what your career can do. But for me, I think it's just more about being consistent, playing a full seasons, and staying healthy.
Yeah, I love that. Before we move on to your Tampa years, which I'm super excited to get into, one other thing with Washington that I think is notable is that was your first Pro Bowl. And when people hear the term Pro Bowl, some people cringe because all the players that don't play, others get into it. But was the Pro Bowl a big deal for you? Because that's the first one that you made, and after a long journey to kind of get there, how big was it for you to finally get that Pro Bowl nod? And that, like you said, you played well every time that you came in your career. So was that finally a little bit of a check mark of, okay, like people are actually seeing what I can do? Or was that maybe not as much of a big deal?
No, it was a big deal at that time. And I'll be honest with you. If you watch the NBA All-Star game right now, the over-under is 195 points, and it's kind of just a dunk fest. But I remember watching Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan play, and it was a fist fight. Who's better, Yeah. Who's better? And the same way in the Pro Bowl when I played, it was like practices were pretty tough, to be honest with you. So it was an honor to make it to the Pro Bowl and be recognized. But, I tell people also, it's a vote. The Pro Bowl is a vote. And obviously, it's a great, great honor, and your name gets out there. But the greatest thing we'll talk about later about winning a Super Bowl, it's earned. You win it. Yeah. A Pro Bowl is a vote. Like, was it a fan vote? Was it a player vote? Who'd you vote for? I'll vote for him too. Like, so I feel like I should have made 5 Pro Bowls, to be honest with you. So, but I was grateful that very first year to play in Washington and represent my team.
Of course. And so after the Washington, I mean, you had a little bit of a down season in 2000, but in 2001, you signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But reportedly, you were heavily pursued by former Vikings offensive coordinator Brian Billick. What made you choose Tampa Bay, and what was it like, making that decision, or were you really considering, going with Brian Billick?
Yeah, no doubt. Brian Billick and I have been together for 7 years in Minnesota. When I got traded originally to Washington, I was hoping I got traded to Baltimore. And Washington gave up a lot of picks and more firepower, so I got traded to Washington. So then I became a free agent. And that was the thought, that I would go to Baltimore and play for Brian. But when the contract came around, 2 things happened. One, the contract was a better situation in Tampa, more secure. And then the other was Baltimore just won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer. And in Tampa, they'd never won it. And I wanted to be the first quarterback for the franchise to have won it. And that's a big reason why I chose to go to Tampa Bay and to be the first guy to do it. And obviously, Tom Brady won it 18 years later and all that. And then Tony Dungy was in Tampa, the head coach. He brought me there. There was a lot of trust with him. We'd been together for 3 years in Minnesota. So, but obviously, there's great respect with Brian Billick. And we thought it was going to happen, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in your first year in Tampa after you signed with them, you broke the team record in passing yards, completions, and pass attempts. And you followed that up in your second season with Tampa Bay with a Super Bowl and another Pro Bowl. Before we get into all the Super Bowl stuff, like, did you know that 2002, 2003 team was going to be special? Like, you played in the NFL now at that point for about 10 years roughly, and you've probably got a pretty good feel of what teams are like maybe at the beginning of the year, or maybe not. But did you always know that team was going to be special with some of the guys that you had on that roster?
I did. That year when Gruden came in, we upgraded in talent, to be honest with you. I mean, you saw it this year a little bit with the Rams. You saw it when Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. They brought in 10 free agents. Well, we brought in a lot of guys too. And Gruden brought in, he brought in Joe Jaravicious and Keenan McCardell and Ricky Dudley and Ken Dilger and Robin Omer, our left tackle, and Kerry Jenkins, our left guard, and Michael Pittman. I mean, I think we made 15 to 17 moves in free agency. So obviously our defense was tremendous. Our offense had a lot of firepower in its own right. But it's just a well-rounded team in every facet. And so we had a great kicker, Martin Grammaticus. So the table was set as far as talent-wise, with a lot of older, veteran kind of players, and none of us had ever won. There's a lot of guys that make Pro Bowls and to get the ultimate prize. None of us had did that. So that was always in the back of our heads. And Gruden, he drove us, and he made practices tough. It was competition every day with offense versus defense and those kind of things. And so we were 3-1 every 4 games. We ended up 12-4, but the driving force was to win it, and to Gruden and all the moves that were made to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously now, I mean, John Gruden's a controversial figure, but I honestly, before, all these things came out, was definitely someone that was a fan of John Gruden. I always wanted to see him, win again. What was he like on a day-to-day? Like you said that he emphasized competition, but, as a leader and as a coach, especially with what you get, like you said, you had a lot of older veteran guys that are approaching the end of their careers, and they're desperate to win. I mean, this is their do or die, and he's coming in here for that. So what was John Gruden like on a day-to-day as a coach and as a person?
Loved playing for Gruden. Loved it. Still friends to this day. So
Really?
It's unfortunate what took place, but loved it. And he inspired all of us. He impacted our lives. He was great to all of us as individuals. He helped propel all of our careers. As coaches, had a lot of great coaching staff too. The Mike Tomlins, who went on to win a Super Bowl, and Joe Barry's a coordinator. Rich Bisaccia was the Raiders head coach after that. And then Rod Marinelli, and the list goes on of all the coaches are behind it too. But love playing for Gruden. Every day he came in, something was – you're never going to fall asleep in his meetings. It is going to be either entertaining or you're going to be learning, one of the two. And but very grateful for him coming to Tampa and coaching me, and always impacted my life.
Absolutely. And on that note, do you have any funny John Gruden stories off the top of your head? Because he's always someone that when they show, the NFL mic'd up moments and stuff like that, any year that he's coached, he's always in there. So do you have a personal favorite, like funny Gruden story, or even just a really good story that kind of shows who he was to you as a coach at the time?
Yeah, I remember in '99, actually I was playing for the Redskins, and he was coaching for the Raiders, and they were he was yelling at Rich Gannon on the side. Rich made a bad throw or something happened, and he was going off on him. And I told my wife Nikki, I said, "Oh man, I would never want to play with that guy. No, he's out of control." You know what I mean? And Keyshawn Johnson, he actually wrote the book that same year, "Get Me the Damn Ball." And I said, I never want to play with that guy either. And then here I am. We're all together. We're 3 buds now. And but I remember the Super Bowl. It was during a timeout. We were trying to figure out what play we were going to call, and it was just me and my 2 buds, Keyshawn Johnson and John Gruden. And Keyshawn goes, "Man, that popcorn sure does smell good." You can smell the concession stands. And Gruden's like, "Golly, I want some of that popcorn too." You know what I mean? But it's just, I love playing for Gruden. And I remember the first meeting I had with him. He's like, "Brad, we're going to win the Super Bowl this year, and we're going to declare war on Monty Kiffin and John Lynch and Rondé Barber and Warren Sapp. And how's our defense going to stop blast off the 2X drive halfback burst, and how they going to stop triple right F right 358 Nebraska seam?" And I mean, it was just competition day every day. And so that's what I remember John as.
I love that. I think that's so awesome. Another thing, like speaking of that, and I want to get into some of the coaches coming. Like you said, you played with, guys like John Gruden, obviously, co-creator of the Tampa 2 and Monty Kiffin, Rod Marinelli, Jay Gruden, Rich Bisaccia, Raheem Morris, Mike Tomlin. Like, do you know that that's a special coaching staff when you're there? And like, did that kind of help with the locker room when you have a lot of guys that have been around for a long time? And I think, like you said, guys like Joe Barry, Raheem Morris, who I think are still underrated as coaches. Like, did you know that they were going to be special, later on?
You just named it. I mean, it's incredible. When you do, you know it. Everybody's playing. Everybody's working together. The building is tight, on both sides of the ball. Tight in a good way. Like all the screws are tight. Like we're in this thing together, And we had great talent, great coaches. And later there was Kyle Shanahan. He was the light switch boy for us. He was an analyst, and Jeremy Bates later became a coordinator in the pros. But it takes all of that. If you're going to win it, the guys that get a lot of credit are John Lynch and Warren Sapp and Rondé and Derek Brooks for making the Hall of Fame. And hopefully Rondé Barber and Simeon Rice make it. But our whole freaking team was loaded. It was a full of rock stars with great talent, great players, Pro Bowlers, whatever level they were. But it was great coaches. So it takes all the above if you're going to win it. And so a few guys get singled out, but really it's just a great team that played for each other.
That's so cool. Going like with the Super Bowl itself, what is that like? Because and people, anyone that's played in the Super Bowl, especially like starting quarterbacks, describe that it's just like a surreal experience. So like when you win the NFC Championship, you're going to the Super Bowl. What is that 2 weeks of preparation like? How is that different from the regular season and everything else that you've done up to that point?
Great question. The year we went, there was only 1 week in between the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. So it's 1 week to get prepared. And we beat Philadelphia Eagles, who had been our nemesis for a couple of years, just beating us in the regular season, beating us in the playoffs. So we beat them, shut down the vet, and then we're able to go. And it's 1 week for preparation. It's a lot going on there. Like, I end up getting 20 tickets for – who you going to give 20 tickets out? Find out your best friends. You know what I mean? So my family, my parents, my high school coaches, some of my best friends, and like getting hotel tickets. And it's a lot of work to do it in 1 week, not alone the 2 weeks. But I also remember it happened so fast. And being in Gruden's system that very first year, we were just trying to learn the plays and how to call the plays in the huddle. And it was just more about how good can we be today. So there wasn't a lot of time to really get nervous for the game. It was more about it's more about keeping game mode because we were hot at the end of the season, beat the San Francisco 49ers in the game, and then beat Philadelphia in the second game, then obviously in the Super Bowl. But it's very surreal. It's a dream come true. Playing Super Bowl, it's like, all your life you're eating chips and dips at some party, and and then next thing you know, you're in the game. And I remember, one of my heroes was Phil Simms. He won the Super Bowl in 1987 for the New York Giants. He went 22 for 25, beat the great John Elway, Denver Broncos. And after the game, he had confetti falling on his face, and he said, "I'm going to Disney World," And so for me, it's the very same similar thing. 16 years later, I'm holding my son Max, and he's 2 years old. My wife Nikki, she's 7.5 months pregnant with our other son Jake, and we were there with my best buddy who I told you about, Gruden, and we're going to Disney World, with the confetti falling on our face. So it's just an awesome, surreal time to go through.
Yeah, one other thing about that weekend, I think that people talk about is the day of the Super Bowl itself. And I think that one question that doesn't get asked enough is, was it hard for you to sleep like the night before the Super Bowl, knowing that this is the biggest game of your life the next day? And how exhausting is that whole day itself? Because I know it's not just, you show up for the football game like you normally do. There's a whole day of preparation, the extra meetings and everything that goes in. Right. And then after, like with whatever you have left, you go celebrate. So what is that whole Super Bowl day like? And how was it trying to sleep the night before?
I remembered at the end of the week, like on Thursday and Friday, I was just exhausted from the season, not alone here we are going to the playoffs. I remember I just told myself on Saturday, you got to get some sleep. Yeah. I actually went to bed pretty early that night, but then I woke up about 2:33 in the morning and my heart was racing. I'm like, but it wasn't nervous. It was more of like, damn, this is going to be awesome, And out there, the game it was a 3:00 game, 3:15 game out there. And usually you have to be at the stadium 2 hours before the game. But when we took the bus ride, we had to go like 4 hours before the game because everything gets, there's so many activities that are taking place. And going down the highway, I remember there was 6 lanes on our side and 6 lanes on this side of the freeway, and there were no cars, just a police escort. It was pretty incredible. I mean, it's like the police is coming. I mean, the president's coming to town, and it got to the stadium, and a lot of times you can go out there, you can wear yourself out in warm-ups, but you really almost got to pace yourself because it's a long game, a long day with all the commercials, the things that take place. Even when you come out for the national anthem, it's 17-minute break before the actual, when they announce the teams, and then the startup. And I remember seeing, Larry Zonk and Bob Greasy and all those guys doing the coin flip, and Celine Dion, she's singing "God Bless America," and the Dixie Chicks were singing the national anthem. I'm like, this is the scene I've watched on my couch all my life, and here I am. I'm getting ready to be a part of this game. And when the game takes place, it takes some nerves through the touch to kind of get the feel of the game and the energy of the game. But then eventually it takes its time, and you're just playing a normal game. And all of a sudden, when the game is over, it's over, and the confetti falls, and there's a winner, and there's not a winner. And it's really interesting. And I don't think we slept for 3 days afterwards, celebrating with all the stuff that took place.
That's so awesome. Before I want to ask you about the celebrations, but the last thing I wanted to ask is, obviously, I mean, you guys won 48-21 in that game, but was there ever a moment in the fourth quarter where you kind of let yourself like holy crap, like we actually might win this thing? Or was it just kind of, you've been doing this all season and it is go until the final whistle blows? But there was ever a moment where the excitement kind of crept in that we might be Super Bowl champions?
There was 2 moments. One was at the end of the half. I threw a touchdown pass to Keenan McCardell. We went up 20-3 at halftime. I'm like, holy smokes, we might win this thing. And then at the end of the going in the fourth quarter, we were actually up 34-3. I'm like, wow, we're gonna roll, we're gonna ride out with this thing. Then all of a sudden, Rich Gannon threw a touchdown pass to I think Jerry Porter. Then they block a punt, and then he throws another touchdown pass to Jerry Rice. Next thing you know, it's 34-21. And the game was actually tight the last 7 minutes of the game to like the last minute of the game. But so there were times where I thought the game was over, then all of a sudden it was in a dogfight. And but it's always a 60-minute game regardless. And they had great champions on that side. I mean, Tim Browns and Jerry Rice's and Romanowski's and obviously Rich Gannon. Just so much respect for all those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So what, like you mentioned a couple of times already, about like the celebration itself, the final whistle blows. Like, what is that rush of emotion like? Because, again, we talked about you did not have an easy road to become a Super Bowl starter and a Super Bowl champion. It took a lot to get there. So what was that rush of emotion like, and how much fun was that 3 days after where you said you barely slept and getting to enjoy everything that you had been working up to, not only that season, but your whole entire life?
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick rundown of what took place. But when the game was over, it was wild doing all these interviews and going to Disneyland and all that kind of stuff and saying those things. Then we actually I was in the stadium for about an hour and a half afterwards doing all these kind of interviews and stuff that took place. And when I came out, the buses had already taken off. So it was just me, my wife, my marketing guy, Brian Lammy. We were sitting there like we had no ride. So there's some guys that came by. We actually hitchhiked a ride with them. We stopped at a Circle K. Oops, holy smokes. You got me?
Yeah, you're totally fine.
Sorry about that. And we stopped at Circle K, bought a 12-pack of Coors Light, and then went back to the team party at the hotel. And then it was awesome, And then that night, I got my jersey right here. Slept in my jersey. I don't know if you can still the stains in it. It's still there. Cool. And wanted to wake up smelling like a champ last Thursday, but then did a interview with Good Morning America at 4:00 in the morning out there. Then was on a private plane heading to Disney at 6:30 in the morning, and then did all the stuff at Disney. Then that night was on Jay Leno's show. Then caught the red eye back to Tampa, did the parade in Tampa, and then caught another red eye out to Hawaii for the Pro Bowl. So it was 3 days of non-sleep, but it's just so much exhilaration. I think it was pretty incredible. It was unbelievable to think back about all the people that impacted my lives, all the school teachers, all my youth football coaches, my high school coaches, my football, basketball, and all the different stuff I'd been through. So it was just a great time to go back and thank a lot of people that had impacted my lives.
Absolutely. And after you get to celebrate and everything like that, you get to go to your second Pro Bowl, and the flight is pretty soon after the Super Bowl. Was it like hard for you to kind of go from that and have to kind of like how hard or what is the transition like of turning the page of, okay, we're just Super Bowl champions, now we're going in the next year? Is it let's do everything we can to repeat, or does some of that Super Bowl hangover, creep into the beginning of the season because you just were world champions?
Right. When the season's over, now it's like by the time you do the Pro Bowl stuff, it's almost mid-February, to be honest with you. And then we started off-season workouts late March. So it's like a 4 or 5 week break. And then all of a sudden we're back in mini camps and OTAs and back in there watching all the film with Gruden and all those kind of things. So I actually felt, to be honest with you, I didn't think there was a hangover. Some people said there was, but I don't think there was. I think what happened, we came out, had a great training camp, won the first game of the season against Philadelphia, shut them out. But then we lost a bunch of players that year. We lost 7 starters for the season through injuries, and we lost a couple crazy games, and so the season got away from us. But I don't think it was a hangover. I think it's more of the injuries that took place and then trying to duplicate something that wasn't there. So that I think that's what took place the second year.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on past the Super Bowl year, one other thing that kind of, woven in between all of this is Monty Kiffin in the Tampa 2. That's one thing I forgot to ask about. The Tampa 2 now is obviously one of the most famous defenses ever, with Tony Dungy and Monty Kiffin coming up with that. Did that, like, playing against the Tampa 2 as it's becoming a thing, help at all or make a big difference in facing it, in practice every day and facing John Lynch and Derek Brooks and Rondé Barber and all the other guys that made up that well-oiled machine, like you said? Did that really, help when it came down to the playoffs and the Super Bowl and some of those other big games?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So I'll kind of – Tony Dungy will tell you the same thing. So Tony Dungy was actually a quarterback in the University of Minnesota back in the 70s. And then he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he won a Super Bowl as a cornerback with them. But he would tell you the Tampa 2 was actually the Pittsburgh 2, that actually Chuck Nolan them actually ran it back in Pittsburgh. It made it kind of more famous as his time in Minnesota, and then what he did in Tampa, the Tampa 2. So and that's what it's kind of created as the Tampa 2, as everybody knows. But Tony would tell you the same story. But I think, honestly, as far as the Tampa 2, I got graded the Tampa 2 because that's all I saw in practice. Yep. It was actually pretty easy for me to go against, but I needed different looks. I needed a lot more quarters coverage and cover 3 and quarter halves, and our defense didn't do that. Our defense had great players. They were very sound. They knew the strengths of the defense. They knew the weaknesses of the defense. But I think at the end of the day, I think what you said was the competition of all the great players in practice and the accountability that we had with each other. That's what made our defense so great. And that's what made our team so great.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that one other thing that I also want to touch on is one of the things that I heard you say that I love is that you said that there's so many guys that get singled out for that season, like your Derek Brooks and Rondé Barbers and people like that. And obviously they deserve all the recognition that they get. But who are some of the guys that, Brad Johnson in 2022 says, these are the guys, like some of the unsung heroes of the team, if you can name a few of guys that people didn't talk about enough that made a big impact that year and your time in Tampa in general?
Yeah, it's hard to list all the names, but But the guy, the leader of that defense to me was Shelton Quarles, middle linebacker. Number 53, great leader, tough. It was the first year he became the starter, having to replace Hardy Nickerson. He was the leader. Greg Spires, defensive end, was a dominant player. Obviously, Dexter Jackson won the MVP at the Super Bowl, and Dwight Smith had a couple interceptions that game too, and Brian Kelly. But on offense too now, like I'm just telling you, the Joe Jurevicius, the Keyshawn Johnsons, the Keenan McCardell's, the Carl the Truth Williams running punt back for us. I mean, his name doesn't get mentioned enough. And then obviously we had Michael Pittman, Mike Allstott, but how about Aaron Stecker and Robin Oben, Kerry Jenkins, Jeff Christie, our center? Like, team was loaded with talent, and not everybody gets their name get called out very much, but it's pretty incredible the amount of players that were Pro Bowl players, or special talent on that team. Also, Martin Gramatica and Tom Tupa as a punter also.
I love that. If we could go back in time and have I wouldn't say a fantasy draft, but let's put you back in the Super Bowl for Tampa Bay, and you have every receiver that you've ever played with in Tampa, in Minnesota, Dallas, any other stop that you've made. Who's the one guy that you trust more than anyone that you'd say that your guy that you're throwing to with 1 second on the clock 20 yards for a game-winning touchdown. Is there a guy that sticks out as just your guy that was more special than any other receiver? And that's not to take away from anybody. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but is there any one person that, with the fate of the universe on the line, that you're throwing to?
Yeah, it's an unfair question. Unfair question. I always tell people my favorite receiver was the guy that's open. You know what I mean? So I played with Hall of Famers, with Chris Carter, Randy Moss. Kenny Cardell was elite, and Keyshawn, and I mean the list goes on. Jason Wittens and Terrell Owens. So it's hard to really mention all those guys or single out one person. But I was just blessed to play with so many great players.
I love that. I know I put you on the spot a little bit, but I don't think there's many quarterbacks out there that have played with as many, Hall of Fame receivers like that. And people forget that. I mean, Chris Carter and Randy Moss, Keenan McCardell, Keyshawn Johnson, Jason Witten. People don't talk about that enough and how great those guys were. One other thing, while mentioning those guys are the elite receivers, and obviously everything becomes down to timing, the relationship, and all of that. Is there anything special that all of those receivers at least had in common that really made them special compared to other players?
Smart.
Really?
Smart. Obviously, they had really good hands, but they understood the game, love the game, love competition. Guys kind of can have short careers. They're just not. They did their homework. They were great in the meetings. They were great in the walkthroughs. It mattered to them. They were ticked off if we lost, or if they won. How are we going to do better next week? You know what I mean? The common trait, just great competitors. You know what I mean? They wanted the ball, love practice, and that's what separates guys. It really does. But being a smart player is key, and being durable. Durable.
Well, speaking of durable, that actually leads into my next question. In that, after that Super Bowl season, you played 6 more years in the NFL, 15 seasons total, which is not very common at that time. And again, we see that it's tougher for guys to play all the way to 40 years old like you did. What was your key to longevity and being able to play so many years in a league that's constantly changing and evolving every single year?
Yeah, a long time ago, I was taught, don't learn the tricks of the trade, learn the trade. Be great at what happens in games. So practice, it's like basketball. You can be great at spinning the basketball, but how many times do you really spin a basketball? Like, practice the plays, be great at, understanding protections, be great at knowing how to go through your progressions and just loving the game. And I think for me, the biggest thing was really just, there were more valleys than there were peaks in my career. And how are you going to deal alone in the dark days of when things aren't going well, And so, but I think for the love of the game and just the competition and just being able to endure over my career was the greatness of it all.
I love that. When you retired at 40 years old, did you want to play, any more football at that point? Were you kind of ready to hang it up as you had a family that was growing? And, would you have considered, going back to it of playing another season if you could have?
I would have loved to have played till I was 50. I loved the game. But at that time, when I hit 40, it's like right when I hit 40, my body just fell apart. I ended up having knee surgeries, had my arm got shot, like it just had no more juice in it, the way I wanted to throw it. And so for me, it was an easy choice to retire. It was just like, I can't go. It's like having, 18-wheeler with flat tires. The truck can't go. For me, it kind of helped me move on in my career and say my career's over. But I just look back at it just knowing that I gave everything I had, thankful for every opportunity I was given.
I love that. That's so awesome. And what have you done since retirement, or the most notable things that you really enjoyed after finally, not having that grind day in and day out as much as you loved it? Like, what are the biggest things you've gotten to do since?
Yeah, I didn't, when it was over, I did not want to get into coaching. I didn't want to get into doing any of that. I didn't want to get into broadcasting. What I really wanted to do was just spend my family time. So I actually coached all my kids' teams, Max and Jake. They're actually, they play at Texas A&M now. So I coached all their youth, middle school, high school teams. I went to a couple state championships the last couple of years in football at our high school. And so that's where I've been involved. Most of the time I've been involved in a couple different charities in Asheville, North Carolina. One's called the Evelyn Foundation, but had a golf tournament there for over 20 years now. And then a new charity that I'm with now is Beyond All Borders in Asheville, North Carolina. So stay active. I love being with my family, and that's been more. And then I'm actually doing a lot of TikToks too now. So I've been kind of making a lot of trick shots, and people can find me all over TikTok making all these trick shots.
Yeah, that was right into my next question that I was going to ask. And I'm someone that makes TikToks myself, not as talented as you, being able to make shots with 2 hands. Some of the things that you do with the football, being able to throw with both hands as far as you do. I've been watching your videos for over a year now, I want to say. And I love watching your videos. I love the energy that you bring. What made you get into TikTok? And do you still like making those TikToks every single day with the trick shots?
Yeah, when I first got into TikTok, it happened during the pandemic. So our kids were making them. They wouldn't let me be a part of their dances or whatever they were doing. So, but I got on there and I started making videos of either working out or videos of my career, kind of splicing films together. But then I looked at people that make these trick shots, and I said, I'm gonna do something, but I'm gonna do a little bit different. So with mine, I try to make not like one trick shot. I try to make 3, 4, maybe 5 shots in a row, maybe with a basketball, spin off my finger or over the backboard, bounce it off the ground, or I don't know, make a football with my left hand and then make it with my right hand. Or off my head. It gets crazy as it goes on, but it's kind of like my therapy. So I don't post it unless I got to make them all. So I don't. Sometimes it's first time, first take. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. I always tell people it takes what it takes, and it's a lifetime of practice to make some of those shots. But I have fun doing it. I love sharing it, and hopefully it brings a lot of humor to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It totally does, and they're always fun. And again, you're backed by popular demand all the time. You gotta give the people what they want. So one other thing to ask then, doing those trick shots, because you've made a lot of videos now. I don't know what the exact count is, but you've made a lot of videos, spent a lot of time doing it. If you can share time-wise, what is the longest it's taken for you to get a video perfectly in one sitting that you've spent? Or maybe multiple days?
No doubt about that. I mean, I've done some within 3 minutes. Okay. And I've done some that have taken up to 15 hours. Like it's work, because it may be 4 or 5 shots in a row and it becomes like, I'm not going to stop till I get this thing done. Like it takes, and then be creative to make it happen, like in a 30-second deal. And usually it's just me and a tripod. You know what I mean? So it's that you want to be able to do these shots and then, to be able to entertain the camera with people are going to watch and to kind of sequence it all out. It's like a dance that takes place when it happens. But the one thing I'll tell you, the truthful about it is I know I'm going to make it, because if I'm ever mad or I'm getting upset or I want to kick the ball over the fence, I never make it. I always have to have a smile on my face. I always have to be entertaining. I try to talk to the camera and give a little flavor to it. And so it's a lot that goes into it when I make it, but it's very, when you see me celebrate, I say it's true jubilation is what it is. So a lot of lifetime of practice went into it.
I love that. I think that's so awesome. And I also love that, again, you've gotten to do a lot of cool things that a lot of people would wish to do, but I think that it's really great that you still take time out on TikTok, especially, to engage with people in the comments and the people that watch your videos and to take time out to support them. And I mean, I know as someone that's a fan of yours and a fan of other big athletes, I think that's so cool. Like, do you enjoy, engaging with, people that are fans of yours and engaging with your videos all the time?
I do. If I get on TikTok there, usually if someone puts a comment on there, I'll comment with you and I'll put a smiley face, or I'll say, I'll give you a quote back, or, lifetime of practice, or, go Knowles, or whatever it is. And I do, because I want, if the person's taking time to write something to me, I will at least acknowledge it. Now, if there's negative comments, I'll just delete it and so on with that kind of talk. But I've actually made some friends here on TikTok, following other people, and just, it's really interesting how talented some people are out there. And I get inspired by others, by watching others too. And hopefully people feel the same way with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, off of that, right, as we're starting to close up here, I'm 21 years old, and again, like I'm not going to be a professional football player or anything like that. But to someone that's my age, similar to your kids' age, I think, 'cause I know your kids are in college. What's the biggest advice you'd give to someone like around my age, around 20, 21 years old, about going into any career? It doesn't have to be football. If there's a couple things, that's okay. But what are the biggest things that you tell kids nowadays?
Follow your passion. Do something that you enjoy. Become great at it. Don't think someone's gonna be better. Like, become great at it. Be great at your craft. Work at it, and just spend those 10,000 hours that we talked about to being great at your craft. And success, it'll be there. I always tell people, don't focus on the process, not the outcome. Get engaged in what you're doing. Love what you're doing. Greatness will come from it. And that's what I say. Follow your passion.
I love that. as we're closing out here, is there anything that you want to say to the listeners, or that you want people to know? Anything whatsoever?
I'll be honest with you. There wasn't social media a long time ago, 25 years ago when I got going, and I've had fun doing the kind of things on TikTok or live here or Instagram. But I really just I love sharing a lot of my stories, my life, and hopefully somewhere along those ways I can tell a story that can be impactful to someone else. And that's what I want to be able to give back to other people. And I'm open. I reach out to people, and hopefully people feel open. They contact me at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, my final question for you, I've been saving this one to the end. I was born in 2000, and in my lifetime, there have been 14 human beings to start for a Super Bowl team and win a Super Bowl. What does it mean to you to be one of 14 people in the last 22 years to do that?
It's incredible. I think 35 guys have won the Super Bowl. 33 are living. 2 that passed away with Kenny Stabler and Johnny Unitas. There's 12 guys that have been multiple guys that have won it multiple times. It's incredible to say I'm in that class. And there's a lot of great quarterbacks that don't ever get that opportunity to play in that game, to be a part of that, but that did the work. And I was grateful to be a part of so many great coaches and players. But I was ready for my time when it came. And it was very fortunate to come through when it did. But I've been able to use the platform of winning it to share stories, to spend time with kids, and I've tried to give back as much as I can with that platform to others, whether it's speaking or whether it's coaching or helping others.
I love that. Well, Brad, thank you so much today for taking time out of your day to come on the Fresh Fantasy Podcast. It's been a blast to get to talk to you and hear some of your stories. And one other thing that I figured I would mention real quick is that I've talked to a couple other people that did get to interview you, and I think this kind of speaks to who you are, that every person I talked to said they absolutely loved your interviews and stuff like that. And I think in talking to other people, and you don't hear this enough, and from me especially, I mean, how much I appreciate and how much those other people I've talked to appreciate you taking out your time. It really means a lot to us. So thank you so much for that. And for everyone that is still listening, thank you so much for listening to the Fresh Fantasy Podcast today. This is episode number 127 overall, heading into the 3rd season of covering all things fantasy football and interviews. So thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a review. You guys already know what to do, and I hope you all